Hello and welcome back to another version of our virtual show that we're going to be doing from the 22nd of May to the 29th of May. Along this period, what we're going to be doing is on average giving you 3 speakers a day throughout this 7-day event that we're doing for you. You can see all the previous recordings that we've done on our website, and also all the upcoming live videos that we've got coming up as well. So if you want to see what's coming up, you can go to www.cambrianphoto.co.uk, click on the Photo and Optics show onto the speakers, and you'll be able to see everyone that's been and coming up on there. Alternatively, you can use the link in the description that I'm just about to post now. Also, we're very happy to say that all the talks that we're doing are free, so you can just join in on our platforms, so on Facebook and YouTube, and watch them for completely free. Because of this, we are asking for donations, which will be going to chosen charities and also local food banks. If you'd like to donate, you can go onto our website, or you can use the link in the description that I've just posted there now as well. Coming up later, we do have Margaret, who's going to be doing her talk on the well-being through photography, which is going to be super interesting. That's going to be at 3 p.m. And also, we have Tracy as well, which isn't on the website, which I'll need to update. So, dearie me, the things of going live. So Tracy is also going to be coming up later. So she's going to be our evening speaker, who's going to be talking about doing photography through astro tracking, so using a tracking device to track the stars and photograph them. But for now, we have Michael, who's going to be talking about some of his work with wedding photography. So let's give a big warm welcome to Michael. Hello, Michael. How's it going? You okay?
Good morning, Paul. I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, very well. Thank you. Very well. It is a Sunday, so I'm still yawning, trying to wake up.
Me too. It seems like all the days are merging into one at the moment, but yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Well, we can give people an update on what actual day it is. So it is just for everyone that's watching. It is a Sunday today.
Good. Well, hello everyone else as well that's joined this morning.
Yeah, we're getting loads of. So we've got a hello from London. Hello, Chris. We've got a good morning from Tony. Hello, morning from Erica. Sarah, plug in the shop. Click and collect. Sarah, even on a Sunday, Sarah's still plugging away. That's what we like to see. There's definitely an accent in your voice there. Where you based, Michael?
Yeah, well, I'm as you touched on there, Paul. I'm a wedding photographer and occasional landscape photographer, and I'm based in Inverness in the Scottish Highlands. So blessed to be shooting in all these amazing locations around the Highlands, castles, and some of the most beautiful countryside in the world. You know, so I'm often spoilt for choice. So it's good. I'm also a Vanguard ambassador and pro. For those of you who know Vanguard, the brand. So I'm lucky to be working with them. We support each other. And I'll touch on some of my the equipment that I use to the talk. The basis of my talk today, what I'd like to do is to just chat through, how I approach, a bit about me and about how I got started, a bit about my approach, my style, and I've tried to, through the talk, split the day into various times that a normal wedding format would follow, bridal preparation, ceremony, couples, and on to some of the other stuff like night shots that you can, that we'll show. So through that, I want to talk a little bit about the equipment that I use and some tips, some of the stuff that I wish I knew when I started out that I know now. And hopefully, you know, for me, learning is a never-ending process. You know, practicing and learning. I'm always looking to learn something new. So if anyone's here watching today who are a beginner or are a seasoned professional, hopefully there may be at least one little snippet that you can take away as something that you can use or that's useful. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And we're going to try and tackle questions as well. So anyone that's got any questions, please post them in the comments. We'll try and answer some at some natural stops as well. So we'll just see how they build up, and we'll see if we can answer the questions sort of as we go along. So drop them in the comments, and we'll try and get to them as best we can.
I can see the live comments as well. So I'll drop into these as we go if I can see any as well, and try and touch on some of them. But by all means, interrupt me as well. Okay, so as I said, I'm working up here in the Scottish Highlands. I kind of fell into wedding photography, really. I started out as a landscape photographer, and one of my friends was getting married, and he convinced me to come along and shoot his wedding for him. I tried to persuade him otherwise, but he won me over, and I went along and photographed his wedding. And at that time, photographing a wedding was such a contrast to any landscape work, because the hustle and bustle of a wedding compared to sitting on top of a mountain or by a lochside waiting on a sunset, polar opposites. But I found that I really loved it. When I'm out taking landscape photos, the thrill for me is when everything aligns. The light, the location, the time of day, all of these things come together at once and give you that thrill that you're onto something. And that may happen only once, maybe twice if you're lucky, when you're out doing landscape photos. But during the course of a wedding through the day, that might be 10, 15, 20 times. So that's where I get the thrill, if you like, through wedding photography. It's an honor, really, to be asked to capture someone's day, knowing that it's a privilege knowing that these photos are going to be treasured for a lifetime. So that for me, that's a big thing as well. It's a little window into someone's life for a day, and the camera, being a wedding photographer, gives you a point of connection, but also a point of separation, a force field, if you like, and it allows you to be in these places where you wouldn't normally and see things from a different point of view. So that for me is really interesting as well. As I said, I want to run through various parts of a wedding day and how I approach it, and some tips and what I do to try and get the photos that I like. Every wedding photographer's got their own style and their own approach, and that's great. The earth wouldn't be the world wouldn't be an interesting place if we all had the same style. And I know there are photographers who are 100% documentary photographers, and there are other ones who tend to orchestrate the day and direct it and have a big hand in it. I'm neither of those, but I'm definitely more leaning towards a documentary photographer. I would say 90% of the photos that I take, people don't know I'm taking them, and my aim is to blend in and not have much of an impact on the day. Obviously, with some of the the setup shots, that's not possible. But again, even when it comes to couple shoots and things, I like to try and keep it as relaxed and natural as possible. So before I start, I suppose some of the people might ask about what type of equipment I use, and I don't want to dwell too much on equipment, but I use Nikon D850s. I run with two D850s, and I generally use prime lenses, a mixture of Sigma Art prime lenses and Nikon's prime lenses. I'll have a prime lens on my primary camera, and on the backup camera I usually have a zoom. So I'll have a 24-70 on a backup camera usually. And Predominantly through the day, I'll use a 50mm 1.4 and a 105 1.4, the Nikon 105 and the Sigma 50. So those are the two lenses I use most. Flashes, I use a Godox system. I use V860 speedlights as controllers and receivers, and I also use an AD360 for when I need a little bit more power. I shoot a mixture of natural light and with flash. I try to not use flash if I don't, I like to try and use natural light whenever I can, but I won't let that restrict me. I've kind of gone through a bit of a cycle. When I first started off, I didn't use flash at all, probably because I didn't know how to use it properly. And then I learned and I taught myself how to use flash. And I think now I've kind of evolved into a situation where I like to use natural light whenever I can, but it's good to be able to fall back on having that base knowledge with flash to use if I need to. So yeah, that's equipment wise. As I said earlier, I'm a pro and an ambassador for Vanguard, and their bags I would use for weddings. I travel a lot, and you'll see from some of the images I do some weddings abroad. And their equipment has been great for that. What I tend to do is take my equipment in a trolley bag with me, something like a Altafly 48T, and then I'll decant into a shoulder bag where I can keep a spare camera over one shoulder and some lenses maybe on the other. So I use something like an Alta Access, and if anybody wants any links of that, I can give them for that too. So that's my equipment really. The other thing to say about on equipment is that having a backup equipment is essential for a wedding photographer. You can't go and shoot a wedding not being prepared. So one test that I was taught very early on was to lay all your equipment that you take with you for a wedding on a table and take one piece of equipment away and ask yourself, if this piece of equipment was broken or damaged or lost, would I be able to survive the rest of the day? Could I manage without this piece of equipment? And if the answer is no, then you need to get a backup. Lenses, focal lengths, you can, I'd be fine, get away, but cameras and things, you always need to have a backup. So don't be stuck. So as I say, I'm just going to move over here onto this image here. When I first started out shooting weddings, I was kind of, I approached it documenting the wedding, and then I thought, well, look, why not try and be creative and play with images and try and do something that maybe I hadn't seen before or that was challenging. And what I found is that these images are the ones that people like the most. This is from one of my very first weddings, and it's probably still one of my favorites. As you can see, it's like a 7-second exposure, and the bride and groom, I've asked them to stand as still as possible while everyone else is moving around them. And it's quite exciting to be able to pre-visualize these shots and then do them. And what I found is these are the shots that bride and grooms really like. So yeah, that was and these are the ones that get attention, I suppose. Wedding photography market is very saturated, so if you can find something that makes you stand out from everyone else, and shots that people remember, then that'll put you in good stead. So yeah, as I say, I work up here in the Highlands, and I'm blessed with being able to shoot in locations that have big windows that flood in this natural light. So working with window light is a big thing that I like to work with. I think it's beautiful. You can work with it a lot to get nice contrast. You can see on this image here, it's part of one taken in the morning in the room for bridal prep. So I'm going to run through some images for bridal prep and what I do and how I do it. But before I do that, one thing I'd like to say as well, I've got a lot of wedding tips, and as mentioned at the start, I'd like to go through things that I wish I knew what back when I started out. But one of the most important thing for me is that you must practice before you do any weddings. You must practice, and so that your camera really has become an extension of yourself. Over time, shooting should feel as natural and intuitive as breathing. Your camera should be an extension of your hand. If you're thinking about settings and technical aspects of the camera, then you're not 100% focused on what's happening in front of you and the aesthetic qualities of the photo. So I think to be able to focus completely on seeing the light, framing your subject, and allowing you to relax in a kind of creative flow, you really have to be at a level where it just comes automatically, like muscle memory. You can operate your camera without thinking. So that's a main tip, if you like. So back to bridal prep. As I say, I like to arrive early. One of the most important things about being a wedding photographer is that you have to be a people person as well, and you have to be sounds a bit weird, but you have to be a nice guy to have around on the wedding. That way, people will relax. People will, allow you to spend time with them, take photographs that are natural, and people will feel at ease, and that comes across in the photos. I'm a great believer in everything that you do and how you act is reflected back at you in your photos. So if you are relaxed and confident and enthusiastic in front of people that you're photographing, then that will be reflected back at you. Conversely, if you act worried and you're panicky or you're grumpy, then that will be reflected back at you as well. So it's nice to arrive early for these bridal preps and get to know people. Quite often I won't even take my camera out. I'll just chat and get to know folk and spend a bit of time putting them at ease and go through. So I'll just flick through some images here. Again, it's most of these are using natural light wherever I can. A mixture of setup and just catching moments as they happen. As I say, after a while, people forget you're there or you're there taking photos. Whereas if I just arrived for a ceremony in the morning and a bride's walking down the aisle and sees me with this big lens, it's nervous enough. So it's good to get all that out of the way, and people just forget. So yeah, as I said, I don't like to intervene and orchestrate things, but there are things you can do to, I suppose, coach and maneuver. If you can see that there's nice light by a window, then why not speak to the makeup artist and suggest that she sets up there? Or why not maybe put a chair there and knowing that someone's going to sit down beside it when they open a card or something like that. So yeah, you can be sneaky about it as well, or you can just say, look, it's all right if I move this here. Don't be shy. At the end of the day, people are paying you to be there to get photos and to get to do the best job. So if that means to move things around a little bit, then do that. So I'm just going to flick through a bit more here. You can see some more using the window light. Obviously, this one here's some stuff going on. Again, more natural light. Yeah, just being in the background, watching what's going on. Little moments. It's my day. My job is really as a storyteller to tell the story of the day and to be there catching these little moments throughout the day. So, one of the skills is being able to read situations to know when that's going to happen. You can see here, like, quite good tip for if you're shooting window light in a room is to get up close and get an exposure on face. And if the subject's not moving, then you can lock your camera down. All the settings, all of your exposure settings, and that means wherever you move around in the room, regardless of where you are, your exposure is going to be correct for your subject's face, and it just makes things a lot easier. Again, using window light wherever possible, and looking for reflections, unusual compositions, shadow, light, silhouettes. All of these things make interesting photos. So it's good to do. I say more moments, be there, capture them, light. Yeah, so some portraits. Yeah, so these are just some examples of what goes on in the mornings and details. I tend not to. I see a lot of photographers, shoot lots of details, and whilst it's important to capture some things, I don't spend too much time. But it's also a good opportunity to be away from the room and back again. So you're giving the people a bit of space, and you're not there all the time. So this that would be bridal prep through the morning, and I suppose from then on through to ceremonies, so for ceremonies, one good tip is to try to get into position that you feel will give you a good vantage point and where you won't get stuck. I always try to speak to the person holding the ceremony ahead of the wedding so that you're sure you can stand where you intend to stand and everyone's happy, and that's great. But what you don't want to be is in a spot where you can't get out of, and if someone blocks a view or someone moves for the rest of the ceremony, you're kind of stuck in that spot. So try not to have that, and also have your spare equipment to hand. There's no use having spare equipment with you in a bag that's in another room, or it's at the other end of the room where you can't get to it if something goes wrong. Always have your second camera or lenses you need, or batteries or anything like that with you. I like to have a little bit of a checklist, before I start a ceremony. I'll check batteries, check everything, and make sure I'm okay, have it all with me. And it's quite a good way of just doing that before every ceremony, get into that practice. I always try and not move really during the ceremony as well. If I don't want to be up close. Whilst I want to capture everything, I don't really want to be featuring as part of the wedding and being prominent in my movement of that. So if I do need to move, I'll wait to an opportune moment. And as well, flash. Try and avoid flash during ceremonies wherever possible. And if I do need to use it, if the venue's very dark, or if bouncing a flash is going to make a big difference, then very sparingly, just at key moments, and always by making sure that people are happy with that.
That's really good. We've had a nice little question that sort of links into the church here from Anne James. Do you use sort of any silent modes when shooting in the church? Yes,
all the time. I use silent mode whenever in during the ceremony, all the time, because nobody wants to hear a beeping camera. And one other thing probably I would worth mentioning is that I'm usually in single point focus mode all the time, but when a bride's walking down the aisle towards me, I'll flick to tracking focus as well, so that as she comes towards me, I've got focus there as they come down. So silent mode all the time, and as I say, avoid flash if possible, and if you can't avoid it, then very sparingly. So the key is just to be almost ninja-like and fly under the radar if possible.
Ninja-like, I like that.
Yeah. So learning to read situations and anticipate what's going to happen is also valuable, and it increases your chances of being able to catch shots as they unfold, and not missing that. Sounds a bit cliched, but that decisive moment. And the more experience you get, the more you get at reading these situations. So after the ceremony as well, one tip I like to is, like, when the bride and groom come out, I always speak to them and try and encourage them to have a moment to themselves outside of the room, and that gives all of the guests a chance to come out. If they're standing at the top of the room with a drink, then you get this impromptu lineup, which can take a bit of time. So usually I'll try and get the guests out, and quite often they'll congregate and maybe throw some confetti. And once everyone's out, we can bring the bride and groom out, and it makes for some good photos as well. So that's through the ceremony, and then moving into sort of couples. Whenever possible, I like to think of the period between the wedding ceremony and having dinner as sort of premium wedding time. And I don't really, if I can, I don't want to take bride and grooms away from that. You know, they've got friends who've coming to see them, and they want to get on with the day. So, you know, if I take them away in that period of time, then they're going to be, oh, I want to get back. I want to, you know, do this and that, and I'll feel a bit rushed sometimes if the schedule's been squeezed. So what I like to do is just to let people get on with it and enjoy that part of the day. And if the light permits, go out and take photos after dinner. There's usually a bit of a lull where you know, venues want to clear away the hall, and at that point they've managed to see everyone, and it's nice, and we can just go out for a chilled walk and catch some photos. Yeah, so that's usually, but I say in the winter that's maybe not possible. So when it comes to couple shoots, I like to try and be as relaxed as possible. I said earlier that how you act is reflected back at you, and if you're relaxed and light-hearted and enthusiastic, then that'll come back at you through how your subjects are. And the other good thing about shooting later after dinner is that in summertime the light can often be nicer than sort of harsh overhead light. But as I say, as working as a photographer, you have to learn to work with the light that you have, and whether that means introducing your own light or using natural light, it's up to you. So you can use, I'm just looking through some shots here now. So we've got, you know, some silhouettes, if we can, light. If you're in an amazing location, then use it. Action, always trying to capture what's going on. Using the most of the light. This one here, I think, was in Thailand, so I was lucky to get out to Koh Samui to shoot a wedding there. And so is this one. You can see that's not the Scottish Highlands. Silhouettes, and just relaxed. I usually start off by asking couples just to walk, hold hands, and every couple's different. You know, some are more relaxed and are more natural, and some are a bit take a little bit of working with, shall we say, and that. But as I say, everyone's different. So for one couple might be quite shy and nervous, and that's fine. So we just adapt and change your style a little bit. But as I say, if I'm enthusiastic, then that enthusiasm rubs off. And I'm always looking to really try and make people feel at ease, and hopefully that comes through in some of my photos. I'm looking for aspects of for things that will stand out, whether it's the location, colors, backgrounds. I'm looking for lines, framing, pre-visualization of focal lengths is really important as well. You know, the same shot at 24mm will look very different at 100mm, as I'm sure most people viewing will know. But just flick through a little bit more here, so you can see some using natural light whenever possible. Yeah, and varying your focal length. So this one's 105, and this one, I don't know, 35 probably in there. So yeah. Hi, Paul.
Hello. Yeah, changing your focal length can really sort of change the way that the shot can give. So obviously going like very wide is going to open up that sort of that lovely landscape that you're in there as well, isn't it? So
yeah, and it can change the feeling of an image as well. I think by using a shorter focal length and really getting in there gives you a more intimate feeling. But sometimes a longer lens will help you isolate and you know, depending on where you are and what you're using. But yeah.
A couple of questions sort of coming in. So we've had a question from Erica. Do you use back button focusing at all?
Yes, I use back button focusing mainly for in low light situations, where maybe on a dance floor where there's light is low and focusing is a little bit trickier. So I can back button focus and keep on my subject, and then so that with a tracking focus, so it's moving all the time and shoot when I need to. And similarly, where if people are walking or moving towards me, like in the situation where a bride walking down the aisle, I said I may use back button focus there and fire as I go. Yeah. So yeah.
And another question from Keith. Do you change your Kelvin scale for different lighting? So I think that's color temperature, I think.
Yeah, white balance. No, not really.
Yeah, white balance.
I tend to just shoot with auto white balance, and then that gets me round about where I need to be. And if I need to change it in post, then I will. But no, I don't. I'm everything else I shoot in manual, but with white balance, I tend to leave in auto white balance. So yeah. Is that all of the questions we have at the moment? Yeah,
they're coming through. I think we'll spread them out a little bit. Just a nice little hello from Alistair Bowie up your end as well from Ford. So
hi, Alistair.
Good to see that you're watching with us. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I do. I often get spoilt by Fords and get toys to take home to play with for the weekend. So the bad part is having to hand them back, all these Leicas and Hasselblads and things. But hello, Alistair.
And we've also got Jason watching as well. So hi, Jason.
Oh, hi, Jason. Yeah, my good friend Jason from Vanguard. How are you? So yeah, still on couple shots here. You can see is keeping your eyes open and being able to adapt. This shot that I've shown here, we were shooting the couple, and then all of a sudden, I think there was a shotgun had gone off or something. It scared all these birds, and just by flicking the focus, just get something a little bit different. Yeah, and if you've got an amazing backdrop like this, then you just have to have it in and make the most of it. And then we've got some, using silhouettes and colors, and changing your vantage point can be a big thing as well. So that this is me lying on the ground, and that would look very different if I was just standing up, shooting against the sky. So it's just making that grass in the foreground there is probably only 6 inches high. And then using the light, you can see here, silhouette, and this is the same couple at the same spot, just by changing the lights, hitting them there, and then after that, there's a light gone down, shooting in the other direction. So yeah, more confetti, and getting up close again, and using the light, and behind the scenes shots as well. Sometimes when you're walking someplace or moving, always have your camera ready, because little things can happen, and shoot away, because you never know that, little shots like this, I think are quite nice, as well as the shots that you've gone to get. Yeah, another one with the birds. So yeah, one other thing is that shooting in all kinds of light, quite often as a wedding photographer, whilst it's great to be shooting in open shade or dusky light where it's, or soft light, that's all fantastic. Sometimes, you've got a raging sun over your head at 2 o'clock on a Saturday in August, and there's nothing you can do about it. So learning to work with that is good as well. And one of the tips I have for shooting in hard light is something like this, where maybe use a wider, although this is a long focal length, I'm way back, and include more of the scene. And ask the bride and maybe the groom to face the sun and close their eyes, and just work with it rather than try and fight against it, if you like. So it's just one tip. And here again, same thing. Just having your camera as these guys walk back towards. Have your camera so you can shoot away and just catch these candid moments throughout the day. And little things that happen. This couple here with the little fellow getting their photo, and then he's running towards me to grab the camera. So always be ready to adapt and capture what's happening, so that you can you can make something from as the scene changes. And again, just keep chatting to people, because the more you chat, the more they laugh. And you can see here, this is another beautiful venue that we have up here near Inverness. And as the couple's walking, as I'm chatting, they laugh, and just something nice. You get a nice reaction. So yeah, using foregrounds, using backdrops, colours, keeping them relaxed. See here. These confetti shots is another time where I'll use back button focus. You touched on that, Paul, because it's tracking. And confetti shots are one of the only times really that I'll use burst mode during the day, because getting a nice confetti shot is really a lottery. People are pulling faces, there's confetti all over the place, hands are moving out. So I tend to shoot in burst mode and just hope that I've got a couple of nice frames. And one other thing is, rather than getting up close, I'll use a longer lens like this and use back button focus with tracking mode, continuous focus with the focus point over the bride's face, and make sure the depth of field, if they're walking side by side, is enough to keep both of them in focus. And then, if during the day there's a nice sunset at any point, communicating with your bride and groom and saying to them, look, if this is going to be nice, do you mind coming out? So if we get a nice sunset or a rainbow, I'll quite often just rugby tackle them and say, look, let's get outside and we'll get a quick photo. So yeah, you can see here, just using the light wherever possible. And even when it's low light, I mean, this one here, I think, is like ISO 6400. It's almost dark, but with cameras these days, you can use the natural light in really low light conditions as well. More confetti photos, more relaxed natural photos. And yeah, and the more you can go out, and this one's on a boat in the middle of a loch. So that's really covering couples and the tips that I have for shooting couples. Group photos, yeah, I'll move on to group photos, but I don't know if there's any other questions, Paul.
So there's Alistair's joining in here. So do you use sort of any filters like grads, polarizers, or anything like that?
Not so much for weddings. For landscape photos and things, I will. But I have to say, not really for weddings. For landscapes, I like to use grad filters, polarizers, and if I'm shooting long exposures, obviously I'll use ND filters and the like, but not so much for weddings, really.
And let's just pick another one here. Oh, from Andrew. Do you shoot black and white specifically, or do you decide later in post? So I'll break that up a little bit and maybe break it down. So, I mean, when you're shooting, at the time, do you think, oh, that's going to make a great black and white sort of photo? Or really, sometimes the color temperature of a room or the lighting in a room is such that I think to myself, this is going to be better in black and white than color. And so I'm looking for contrasting light, if you like, and shadow, knowing that I'm shooting it for black and white. But quite often, I will as well look at a photo in post and compare both and think, well, it looks better in black and white, or it looks better color, or both. But yeah, I think I shoot a lot of film, not for weddings, but in my own time. I like to shoot a lot of film. And I think that's helped me to appreciate light and timing, and I try to shoot my wedding and all my digital work with purpose. So it's the same as shooting with film. I don't like to sort of scatter and shoot away. On a wedding day, a typical wedding day, I might shoot, 1,200 photos in total. I don't know compared to anyone else if that's a lot or not, but I've read some people can shoot 3,000 photos in a day, and that's fine if that's your style. But I think with shooting a lot more film now has definitely seen me improve what I'm seeing and framing and timing and all of these things, and I've seen my keeper rate go up. So a good tip is
buy a film camera and some rolls of black and white film and get out there and shoot, and you'll see it.
And you can teach yourself to be a little bit more respectful of the shots that you take. So, but like you said, everyone has their own style, and there's no real or right or wrong way. We're just trying to sort of tell people how we do it, and and that's it really.
And as I said, everyone's got their own style and their own approach, and that's what makes it what makes things interesting and gives people that choice. That's something really that's come from my landscape background as well, is that I would far rather go out and set up my camera and really think about a shot and go through all the aspects, the light, the composition, the focus, before I take the shot and check everything twice, rather than just go out there and spray and take 100 photos and come back and think, well, which one's the best one, So I think that the mantra of shooting less and thinking more is definitely something that I've taken into my wedding work as well.
Oh yeah. Just in relation to, because we talked a little bit about the black and white and stuff as well. I mean, when it comes to the editing side of things, do you sort of have like a preset section of sort of colors that you use? Or
so I have my own presets. I am probably a bit of a dinosaur in that I don't use Lightroom. I use Bridge, as you can see. I'm using Bridge to present here. And I use Adobe Camera Raw for processing, and I use that for batch processing as well. And it's just because I always have. And I learned to use Photoshop before I learned to use Lightroom. And I just find it more comfortable and to work in that space. And I have raw presets that I bought and I have since changed and saved. So I've tweaked them to suit myself, if you like. And style and everyone's style changes, and mine's is no different. I've evolved over from when I started, and it constantly is changing. But what I like to do is to try and keep a classic, timeless look, if you like. That although it's changing, it's not going to be something that's way out of fashion within a year. And someone will look at the photos and think, "Oh goodness, why did I have this guy take my photos?" So I try and keep a consistent look. But yeah, the presets that I use, I purchased, and then I've tweaked them and modified them to use them as my own. And to probably now to the point where there's not much left of what I purchased. So yeah, I have my own, and I use those for black and white and for color, and I'll adjust each photo as I go using these presets. But so moving on to group photos, quite often I hear people, or I read a lot about people saying, "Oh, you have to shoot group photos at f4 or f5," and I don't. I like to shoot my group photos at as shallow depth of field as possible, and to give me the look that you can see here, this kind of popping off the screen look. And I like to use a long lens as well. You can see here, I like to try and keep the sky out of group photos if possible, and use a long lens. If it's bright and sunny, I'll have backs to the sun, like this one here, and I'll use 2 flashes, one at either side, to pump some flashback in. So that way people are not screwing up their eyes, and they're not squinting in the sun, and I'm in control of the light that's falling back in and onto the people. So yeah, by carefully positioning people and helping them into the group, then there's no reason why you can't shoot that f2.8 for shots like this. I mean, this one we've been taken at f2.8. One other tip is to use a tripod. So my Vanguard Alta Pro 2 comes in handy, where I use the tripod to keep the camera where I want, and so that I'm not moving from a spot, so that my focal length is not changing once I've set the people up, and I can move back and forth towards the group and leave the camera and not have to worry about it. So it's quite a good use for the tripod during the wedding. So this takes us on now to night shots, and these type of shots, I suppose, are the type of thing that people, I wouldn't say know me for, but associate with my work. And it's over time, I realized that it's at weddings these days, everyone has a powerful camera on their person. And one of these, the cameras in iPhone 11s these days are probably as powerful as cameras were, pro cameras were, a few years ago. So everyone is walking around with a camera capturing images. So as the paid professional photographer, you have to make sure that what you're producing is way above that standard and is something that couples can't or guests can't get. And what I found in the world today, everyone through social media and having cameras they're overloaded with images. So you have to find something that stands out, or I have, and it's helped me stand out. And I enjoy it. I love being creative with light. You can paint with the light. I think the name of the talk today is seeing the light. So pre-visualizing where using flash, what you can do. So just contrast two images here on the screen. This one here is taken with no flash at dusk. And this one is when it introduced the flash. So it can completely change the feel and look of an image. You can see here by using a backlight flash, I'm lighting up the profile of the couple. And I'm also lighting up, you can see there's a little bit of rain going on that's getting caught by the light. And it just gives it a little bit more atmosphere. And I find that these are the shots that couples want and love. And whenever people ask me for prints or folks change their profile pictures or things, it's images like this. And it's nice to experiment and be creative. So I'll flick through some of these that I have. So again, using rain's a good thing. I'm one of these rare photographers that when it rains or snows, I'm delighted because I want to get people out there and capture photos. Things like this, where it's raining, people might ask me, "Well, how do you manage to convince brides to go out in their wedding dresses and wedding hair in the rain?" Well, the answer is quite often I'll take a best man or someone with me with an umbrella, and they'll be covering, and we set up, and then I'll take the shot, and before I take the shot, they'll run out of shot. I'll fire a couple of shots off and back again, and really, in scenes like this, the light that I'm introducing is the only light. This is, to the naked eye, this is pitch black. So one of the really satisfying things is, you'll have people standing out in these type of situations, and you take a photo, and really they're just they're standing in the middle in a dark space, and there's been a couple of flashes of light. But when they come back and see what's been produced on the camera, the reaction can be really rewarding, seeing that people's reaction to these photos that they can see on the camera. So I'm a great believer in doing the more thought and the more I can put in camera, then the less I have to do in post. So for shots like this, again, I'll also sometimes use a tripod, but sometimes I'll use a little travel tripod to rest my flash on. I use something like this. I would call it a rice bowl reflector, but that's pointed back at the couple, and this gives this sort of silhouetted light, and it lights up the rain and anything else that just so I'll make the screen bigger so you can see that. So one of these, this is an AD360 Godox flash, and I'll use this kind of rice bowl reflector. I'm not sure my camera. Yeah. So yeah, I'll use that. And sometimes I'll use another one pointed up into the sky to light up the rain. So just going to flick through some more examples of this. Again, using locations to your advantage. Quite often during the day, I'll get someplace and see it and pre-visualize what it would look like and how I would like to use lights or use anything to my advantage, mixing the ambient light and flashlight to create something a bit different. So, and quite often something from nothing. Again, rains can make a nice scene, and little bits in between. More rain, fireworks as well. Using a flash to backlight the couple with some fireworks, smoke bombs. I'll quite sometimes, I've been known to take these are smoke grenades from paintballing sessions. So I'll light one of these off and have a flash way back, and knowing that when the flash fires, the smoke from the paint bomb is going to create this effect. So yeah, it's something a bit different, and it allows me to play around and be creative. Some more here. Another example of one of our amazing castles up here in the north, and something simple. You can use a flash to light up a tree as well as the couple. So I've got a flash behind the tree here, and I've got one behind the couple. Or for something like this, I've got a flash behind 5 trees, or 4 trees, sorry, and one behind the couple as well. So yeah, it's just playing around. And these are the type of thing that you can set up outside, and then once it's all ready, come and grab the bride and groom, have them stand there for 2 seconds and back in again. So they're not, you're doing all the pre-work, if you like, where they're not there, and you're only taking up a minute of the time, and you can get something like that. Another one, you probably see a lot of these, the sort of pose it's very similar in a lot of these, and that's because it works, for me. You can try other types of poses, but at the end of the day, these couples don't see other people's wedding photos. So whilst it's good to mix things up a little bit, it's also good to stick with what works, I think. And smoke bombs here again. This was actually the videographer shot that I muscled in on. Yeah, some night shots here. Making the most of reflections and the stars. I would have used a tripod for that one too. Some rain. Yeah, coloured gels. I'll use coloured gels quite a bit. So in this one, I've got a flash behind the couple here and a coloured gel inside the church to try and mirror that blue in the sky that we've got here. So yeah, it's just something a bit different. Using the flash to project a shadow onto the side of a castle, using more rain and umbrellas. Symmetry. I'll quite often see something and think, oh, this is going to work. So this is, again, another one from the wedding I touched on in Thailand. As soon as I arrived here, I knew with this long pool that there'd be a good opportunity to have a reflection. So I had this in my head, and you can see people over on the left here just having dinner. So this was all set up. Bride and groom come out for 2 minutes, stood there, quick shot and back again. So yeah. Again, using flash and some coloured smoke bombs. I'm not sure if that was a coloured smoke bomb or a smoke bomb with a coloured gel, as well as the paintball grenade ones. You can use these anti-toxic chimney pellets as well, and those just sweep over some smoke and give some atmosphere. And nights like this, when it's still, when you flash them up, you can create a nice effect. This one's a puddle. There's a puddle on the driveway to a venue, so I noticed that there was a puddle on here. So I have to say I ruined a pair of shoes doing this. I got right into the puddle. Camera's down low, almost touching the water here, and a flash behind. And it's just being able to create something from nothing. And again, seeing couples' reactions when you show them images like this, it's good. Same one, back to these guys, and then I think this wedding was the week after that one, and the puddle was still there, and I knew it worked, so I thought, well, we'll do it again. So yeah, you can see there, just trying to get a silhouette and a shadow with these guys, so it's good. Some more rain. Yeah, composition. Don't always have to use a flash. This one's just using silhouettes to frame the couple using these trees. Or in this case here, using the groom's shirt to bounce some flashback onto the bride and light up her face. Again, using the backlighting technique, it's quite good for cigar shots and the like. You can use that to create something a bit different, something atmospheric. There's a canal lock. This was a tricky one to do. These canal locks are, I don't know, probably about 50 meters apart. So I'm on one, the couple are on the middle one, and there is a flash on another one. So effectively my flash is 100 meters away, and I'm shooting there, trying to get the flash behind them On this occasion, the couple, she had been brought up by the locks and wanted a wedding photo with the locks in them. So rather than just have the couple standing by the lock, I thought, well, why not try and do something a bit creative and different? So, more fireworks, and when you're in the Scottish Highlands and you get a sunset like that, you've got to make the most of it. So that takes me through from night shots. I don't know if anyone's got any questions, Paul, on night shots.
Oh yeah, there's a few questions coming in. Yeah, yeah. So I think just to try and find relative questions. So there was where's it gone? There was one about, I'll find it and drop it in the section. But do you use manual or ETTL flash when doing your flash work?
It depends, really. Usually I will, for stuff like the night stuff, I use TTL, and I bring it down a notch so that I'll go off TTL -1 if you like, and that preserves most of the highlights and gives me a good base to work with. My settings for shots like this are usually the shutter speed is something, a speed that I'm comfortable hand holding at a particular focal length. So if I'm shooting at, say, 50mm, that might be 1/125. Although I've recently upgraded to the 24-70 with VR, so I can knock that down a couple of stops and get away with something a bit slower handheld. But even if I don't, I'll use one of my Vanguard tripods and take that with me. I'm not afraid to ramp up the ISO for shots like that. If you can imagine, if you want to light the whole scene with flash, but preserve the highlights, it's quite good to use a high ISO rather than having to, you're probably going to be shooting at 2.8 anyway with it being low light. So the high ISO affects how much the flash will light up the scene. So yeah, it's quite good to be able to experiment, but it's just different for every scene and how the ambient light is on the day. It just comes with practice, I suppose.
Yeah, and just once again, whatever you're comfortable using, and depending on the effect that you're trying to give, isn't it, more than anything?
Yeah, and if I've got time and I'm there setting everything up, then, but yes, I'll use manual. But if I'm shooting off, quickly, and in situations where it's raining like this, I don't want to be leaving a bride and groom there. Well, hang on, but I just meter this flash and I do this and that. Speed is everything. But if I've got time and nothing's moving, then yes, I'll always try and use manual flash power wherever possible. But sometimes you don't have that luxury.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you.
Good. So as well as these night shots, one of the other things that I have is a typical setup for dance floors and the like. So whenever I'm shooting first dances or anything that's dancing related, I like to have two flashes, as you can see here, two flashes at the back of the room and one on camera. The two flashes at the back are usually in manual mode, so I'll have these at a fairly low power, typically 1/128 or 1/64. I'm not afraid to bump up the ISO as I need to, and I have a flash on camera to throw a little bit forward. So what I find that does, it just gives your shots a bit of depth. I can move in closer and I can move in further away, and also I can cover the flash that's on camera with my hand and restrict the light going forward, and without touching anything, any settings or doing anything, I can get a shot like this or an entirely backlit shot that given a different effect. First dances generally last a minute before everyone else starts to join, so you really have to be able to work quickly. And what I do is I try and get some solid insurance shots in the bag first, and then if I can get those within the first 15 seconds, then fantastic. Some wide shots like this, and then I'll maybe try and experiment with other types of shots. And then as people start to join the dance floor, I can move in a bit closer and get more close-up photos, because then everyone else is on the dance floor and you can isolate the bride and groom. So yeah, that's how I do it. And for main dancing photos, I like to try and get in as close as we can as well. and quite often I'll I'll get up dancing with everyone, and I can be inconspicuous and shoot away. And again, how you act on the day and how you are and how you interact with other guests has a big effect here, because if you're all through the day, if you're chatting and socializing and having a laugh, then people are more relaxed around you as well, and that comes through in the photos. And usually with weddings up here in the Highlands, by this point in the evening, everyone is well oiled, shall we say. So folk tend to be a bit more relaxed and let their guard down a bit. So yeah, and I think that's the last slide I have today. So just a cute one of this little guy with his granddad. And again, it's just being there and being able to adapt and capture something quickly. So yeah, that's it for my slides. I don't know, Paul, if you have any other questions, but I can run through a few tips that I may have for anyone that's looking to shoot weddings or is shooting weddings, and if that's helpful, or if anyone wants to ask any other questions.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. I think that last image there as well just really sort of sums up what everyone feels at a wedding as well, doesn't it? Which is really nice to see. Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, we've still got a few questions. We've had this asked a couple of times actually, but I'll just load the last one that's coming in. Do you shoot alone, or do you use somebody with you to support you?
Very rarely. On the odd occasion where it's asked, where a client will request a second shooter, then I will. But I much prefer to shoot alone. As I said, I like really try and fly under the radar and be as inconspicuous as possible. And it's my job to photograph the wedding in a natural way and as things unfold naturally, should I say. So having two people floating around with cameras just increases the presence. So I much prefer to shoot alone. One of the things I get asked for a lot of people is how do you start? How do I get experience? Should I second shoot and all the rest of it? And that's fine if you can, but I think more importantly, it's good to just assist someone rather than second shoot. Just assist, be there and watch and help out. You take a lot more from it. So I think I was very lucky in that I never did any second shooting, but I went along to a couple of weddings as an assistant and just got a chance to watch and see how it goes, and then ask questions later. So that was a lot more beneficial for me than actually being there shooting. So, but to answer the question, no, I tend not to have a second shooter. I shoot alone.
Brilliant. We've got another question, I think. What media do you use to allow your clients to choose their images, or do you generally just supply like an album or a USB or?
Yeah, USB, just a USB. I tend not to provide albums. I know that some people do, and some people might find it strange that I don't. But for me, it's so easy now for couples. They can go onto a website and they can order a Chinese and a bottle of wine and make their album in an evening. So I just provide the USBs now, and by all means, if anyone wants an album, I'll help them with that. It's fine, but I tend not to. So it's mostly just images on a USB. Yeah.
That's brilliant. We've had lots of comments. I'm just flicking through, see if anything that we've missed. We've had loads of thank yous and thank you for sharing your beautiful images with me. Once again, some amazing images. So really sort of positive feedback here as well. So yeah, everyone's enjoyed it. So that's been brilliant.
No, it's not a problem, and thank you for having me. And I've been a wee bit nervous to this. I hope I haven't waffled too much, but thank you for joining. Thank you for joining, everyone.
It's been really brilliant, and it's been lovely having you here. So I'll just pop you back up into the green room, and I'll speak to you in a second, Michael.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, guys.
Cheers. What an amazing talk from Michael there. So absolutely lovely to see his work and also go through the process of what he does within a wedding day as well. So absolutely lovely to see that, and big thank you for joining us and helping us with our show as well. So I'm going to post some links in the comments so you can able to follow Michael on his Facebook and on his Instagram page. I'll post them just after the video is sorted, so they'll sit in the comments for you. Also later on today, we've got more talks coming up for you. So next is at 3 p.m. where we've got Margaret coming in and talking about the well-being of photography. So that's going to be a lovely talk that we're going to go through. And then later on this evening, we've got Tracy that's going to be talking about doing some more astrophotography, but this time with a astro tracker. So we get to see how a astro tracker works. As always, if you've been watching live, thank you very much for commenting, sharing. If you're watching the video afterwards, you can still comment with your questions and hellos and whatever you comment with. And if you can share the video, like the video. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe to our channel, and anything else that I've missed off that helps us sort of promote the show and spread the word even further. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all later on. Bye-bye for now.